Well, every human being lives moment by moment by a set of priorities, a set of values that they hold. And that hierarchy of values or set of values is fingerprint specific, unique to them. And every one of their perceptions, decisions, and actions are based on it. And they make decisions based on what they believe will give them the greatest advantage or disadvantage at any moment in time. Knowing what those values are is crucial, because whatever's highest on the list of values, you are spontaneously inspired to want to fulfill.
Hi, it's Robin Sharma, and you're tuning into the Millionaire Student Show with Sashin.
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 Sashin. Sashin. Sashin.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode on the Millionaire Student Show, where I get the opportunity to pick the minds of this generation's thought leaders, change makers, disruptors, innovators, and inspirations. Dissect their story from the pain they went through, the price they paid, and what their prize looks like today. I formulated the Millionaire Student Self-Development System and Company because this is what I was searching for when I first entered the entrepreneur world at 17 years old. My mission and purpose is to serve you with virtual mentorship to consciously make your clock tick without taking the thunder away from today's guest. He was born in Houston, Texas. From an early age, he wore hand and leg braces to correct a birth defect. At school, he had difficulty reading, writing, and speaking, which was later diagnosed as dyslexia and a speech impediment in first grade. His teacher announced to his parents that he would never read, write, communicate, never amount to anything, nor go very far in life. At 17 years old, he had a near-death experience. These early challenges set the scene for a remarkable transformation in his later teens. He made a commitment to dedicate his life to the understanding of universal laws as they relate to maximizing human awareness and potential. With focus and determined effort, he broke through his dyslexia and mastered reading and writing. He is considered one of the world's leading authorities on human behavioral specialist and personal development due to his extensive studies in theology and sociology. Allows him a unique adaptability across all cultures. He has studied over 30,000 books across all the defined academic disciplines and has synthesized the wisdom of the ages, which he shares on stage in over 100 countries. He has studied over 299 academic disciplines throughout the past 47 years, revolving around maximizing human awareness, potential, and leadership. He has then synthesized these teachings and interwoven them with his work on human values, his trademarked methodologies in human development, the Demartini Method and the Demartini Value Determination are culminations of over 47 years of cross-disciplinary research and study and utilized in all human development industries across the world. He is also the author of 40 books, published in 29 different languages, and has produced over 60 CDs and DVDs. His work has been referenced in over 170 books. Globally, he has been interviewed on over 9,000 radio and television talk shows, and he has been featured in various national and international film documentaries and movies, including The Secret and The Opus. The Millionaire Students, please help me in welcoming today's guest, who travels 360 days a year to countries all over the globe where he shares his research and findings in all markets and sectors. He has presented programs at 30 plus education institutions such as Harvard, New York University, University of Venezuela, Melbourne Institute of Technology, to name a few. He's the founder of the Demartini Institute, Dr. John F. Demartini. John Demartini, thank you so much for virtually, spiritually, and mentally being on the Millionaire Student Show today. And, John, we met a few times in South Africa. I actually have attended one of your events. And to those who are listening or watching in right now, John is definitely the real deal. What you see is definitely what you get. His methodologies could confuse and lose people, but if you stay mentally synced in, you'll truly gain measurable, valuable information. And John, your work is actually music to my ears, because I got started with personal development and self-development at 8 years old. So I'm truly grateful for you being on the show today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. Thank you.
For those who don't know you, you were born in Houston, Texas. From an early age, you wore hand and leg braces to correct a birth defect. At school, you had difficulty reading, writing, and speaking, and your teachers completely ruled you out. At 17, you had a near-death experience. Walk us through your earliest memories of life that actually, went out and took your pain and turned it into your passion and, created who you are today.
Well, I did have challenges physically and mentally initially. And I was told by my first grade teacher that in front of my parents that I would never be able to read, probably never be able to write, not be able to communicate, not go very far in life, not to amount much in life. And she suggested that I go into sports, because when I finally got out of the braces at age 4, all I wanted to do is run. So I ran everywhere. So I ended up getting into baseball for a while, and then eventually surfing. And Texas wasn't the surf capital of the world. So I hitchhiked at age 14. I left home at 13, but I hitchhiked at 14 to California. Was a street kid. Then I made it at 15 over to Hawaii, and I rode big waves in Hawaii. I was a big wave rider in Hawaii on the North Shore. And there I nearly died. And I had the opportunity to be found in my tent by a lady who helped me recover from nearly dying. And she led me to a health food store, which led me to a talk by Paul C. Bragg. And one night, in 1 hour, one man inspired me to believe that I could overcome my learning problems and someday be intelligent. And that was a catalyst that night to want to attempt to go back and try to learn how to read and speak properly. And I ended up flying back to Los Angeles, hitchhiking back to Texas when I was 18. And to see my parents, I took a GED, which is a high school equivalency test. And I eventually passed. And I tried to go back to school, and I failed. And I ended up, with the help of my mom, memorizing and learning 30 words a day in a dictionary, learning how to pronounce and spell and have meaning out of words, and grew my vocabulary 30 words a day until my vocabulary was strong enough where I could read. And then I started to read 18 to 20 hours a day once I learned I could. And I never put it down. And slowly but surely, people noticed that I was rising in my classes, and people started asking me questions, and I started teaching. And I've been teaching ever since. So it's going on 48 years of teaching now. And I had a dream to travel the world and teach and do what this man did for me to as many people as I possibly could. And I've been doing that ever since. I've been to 154 countries speaking now. And I full-time travel normally, except for the Corona period here. And this is what I love doing. I love researching, writing, traveling, and teaching. I pretty well delegated everything else off my plate. I haven't driven a car in 30 years plus. I haven't cooked since I was 24. I delegated everything else except what I do. I don't do administrative. I don't do business material. I just research, write, travel, teach. That's all I'm interested in doing. That's what I've delegated everything else away for, so I can do what I love doing.
John, the odds are always going to be against us in life. Statistics and ratios are going to want to count us out in life. And the majority of people listening in aren't as successful as the guests I actually have on my show, but they can definitely relate with their foundation, the pain they went through, the price they paid. But they get lost when we talk about the prize and manifested results. How did your earliest memories as a child mentally shape you to make that decision with no point of return to want to better yourself?
I believe that anything that happens in your life is on the way, not in the way. I didn't believe that initially, but I can see that now. Anything you're not grateful for in your life is baggage. Anything you're grateful for is fuel. When I turned 18 and I went back to try to go back to school and I failed my first class, I was really having a low moment. And I was curled up in a fetal position underneath a Bible stand in my mom's house, dad's house. And I was thinking to myself that this whole dream about being a teacher and learning and thing is just not going to work. And I was thinking I'd better go back to surfing because I could do that. And my mom came home from shopping and she sat next to me on the floor as I was curled up. She said, "Son, what happened? What's wrong?" She hadn't seen me cry since I was young. And I said, "I just bombed it. I guess I don't have what it takes. I guess I'll never be able to read or write or communicate, and around thing never go very far in life." And she just sat there quietly. And I was really having a low moment. All of a sudden, she said something that changed the whole trajectory. She said, "Son, whether you become a great teacher, healer, and philosopher like you dream, whether you go back to riding giant waves on the North Shore like you've done, whether you return to the streets and panhandle as a bum, as you've also done when you were young, I just want to let you know that your father and I are going to love you no matter what you do." And when she said that, I kind of got teary-eyed. My hand went into a fist. I looked up and I saw a vision of me standing in front of 1 million people. And I was speaking. And I said to myself, I'm going to master this thing called reading and learning and studying. I'm going to master this thing called teaching, healing, and philosophy. And I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to travel whatever distance. I'm going to pay whatever price to give my service of love across this planet. I'm not going to let any human being on the face of the earth stop me now, not even myself. And I got up, I hugged my mom, I went in my room, and that's when I got that dictionary out, and I made a commitment to memorize that dictionary. And then I went on to 8 encyclopedia sets and started devouring one encyclopedia, volume by volume, until I was developing enough knowledge, enough vocabulary to be able to catch up with all the other students and exceed. And I never stopped that reading. So that was the moment I made a no turning back moment. There was no option. And when you have a no turning back moment and you stay focused on what it is that you want to do, and you fill your day with the highest priority actions you can that you know will get you there, in my case, reading and studying and sharing it with people. I loved giving it to people because anything I learned that was inspiring to me, if I shared it with somebody and they were inspired by it, man, that was everything to me. It still is. So I never gave up on that. And sooner or later, if you stay with something long enough, eventually everybody else dies out, you end up somewhere. You just got to stay with it. And I have not given up on my dream. And I'm still researching, writing, traveling, teaching today. And that's what I love doing. And this morning I'm doing it. Last night till wee hours of the morning I was doing it. And I hope to do it until I can't do it. So that's when you find out what you absolutely love to do, you're inspired by that mission. And you want to share that with people in a way, and you create a sustainable, fair, equitable exchange with people that's sustainable. The doors of opportunity just keep building momentum, and there's nothing that has to stop you.
So before we get into the methodologies, formulas, and psychologies of, today your work has been referenced in over 170 plus books, and you have been interviewed, let's just say 9,000 plus television talk shows and radio shows, podcasts as well. How does that make you feel knowing where you came from and what you went through?
Well, I'm just grateful. I'm grateful that I get to share. I met with a gentleman last night from India, and he has me speaking to 100,000 people in India coming up. And that is like an inspiration. It's like the vision. that I saw, and which is very inspiring. I've been blessed to be interviewed by many, many people in many, many countries, and I am very grateful. I look at it as this way. I just am grateful for the opportunity to consistently do what I love doing and have the opportunity to do it. And people, anytime people are interested in learning and listening, I'm grateful for it. I don't see it. I never think of myself as success. I always say success is a myth. I'm a man on a mission, and my mission is to continue to research and share and do that. But people will label me success or failure or whatever. I don't put much labels on those or any power on those things, because those are transient labels. And I always say, if you think you're successful, you're probably on your way down. If you think you're a failure, you're probably back up on your way up. I don't let either of those titles distract me. I'm just a man on a mission who loves doing what I do, and I just do it every day. If you fill your day with high priority actions that inspire you, your day doesn't fill up with low priority distractions that don't.
So you've studied theology, sociology, over 30,000 books. You've also studied over 299 academic disciplines throughout the past 47 years. What shifted you right now? What are you focused on? What are you studying right now as we speak? Before you jumped into this podcast, what is something that got your attention to focus on?
Well, I'm writing a book right now on, believe it or not, on the sun, the main star of our solar system, and the helioseismology of it and the physics of it. And I'm looking right this minute. I was writing and editing a section on standing waves and what they call wave theory, which is an alternative to the standard model of particle physics. And I'm actually putting together my own model, looking at some of the weaknesses of the standard model that seem to be overlooked, and adding my ideas onto that, and putting a model together about the relationship between life on the planet and the sun. For thousands of years, man has been honored and appreciated the sun, from solar worshiping to solar personifications of deities to you name it. But from an astronomical and astrophysical perspective, the sun is what gives us life here. So I thought I would put together a text, it's about 800 pages, on the sun from every angle, from the physics to nuclear physics to quantum physics, particle physics, and theology and sociology, panpsychism, all the different fields around it as it relates to man and human beings on Earth. Because all the cycles of the elements, all of them are derived from stellar nurseries, you might say. And believe it or not, it all relates to the evolution of human consciousness, which is my primary objective. Everything I read, everything that I study, no matter what field I study, it's all related to the evolvement of human consciousness and the maximum awareness and potential for human beings on planet Earth. And what we can do as we solarize in the future, go into space. And so I'm studying every day. I don't miss a day, every day, exploring anything that might advance the human being to master their lives and to appreciate the universe that we're living in and appreciate the universe that we represent to the universe around us.
John, you have become an expert in human behavior. What behavioral patterns have you noticed that we carry from our childhood age, living under our parents' roof, in which we carry that baggage, that habits into our adult life?
Well, every human being lives moment by moment by a set of priorities, a set of values that they hold. And that hierarchy of values or set of values is fingerprint specific and unique to them. And every one of their perceptions, decisions, and actions are based on it. And they make decisions based on what they believe will give them the greatest advantage or disadvantage at any moment in time. Knowing what those values are is crucial, because whatever's highest on the list of values, you are spontaneously inspired to want to fulfill. And what is lower on the list of values, you'll require extrinsic motivation to get you to work towards. And you don't want to have extrinsic motivation to do what you say you want to do in life. You want to be inspired spontaneously as a leader and emerge empowered from within. So identifying that hierarchy of values, identifying what's truly most important to you, identifying what's really priority, and structuring your life according to that, and learning the art of finding a way of making that a vocation as well as your vacation. So you can do what you love and get paid to do that. So you can delegate lower priority things. Because anytime you're doing lower priority things, you're devaluing yourself. Anytime you're doing high priority things, you're valuing yourself. And if you want the world to value, it's about you valuing you and honoring the most authentic, most inspired, most spontaneously inspired part of you, which is that most intrinsic value, the highest value. Ancient Greece, they called it the telos, which is the most meaningful and purposeful aspect of our life, is to fulfill what's most deeply meaningful. Our identity revolves around it. So capturing what that is and giving yourself permission to live according to that, living authentically and integrally to that, is one of the most important things we can do in human behavior. And so often we compare ourselves to others, live in their shadow instead of on their shoulders. And we automatically subordinate to the world around us, inject the values of others, live by conformity instead of enormity, and distract ourselves into a multitasking delusion instead of actually being focused on what our mission is and actually finding the solution and giving us permission to shine, not shrink. This is the key of really living a fulfilled life. And it has nothing to do with what your background is. It's the decision you make today of whether you start to live by priority, because you can change whatever's happened into opportunity. Because when you're living by your highest values, you see things objectively and you don't judge them and don't get distracted by them. You stay focused on the mission. So I'm a firm believer in identifying that and living by that is one of the most crucial things a human being could do, no matter what they've been through in life. And the moment they do, their life changes.
There's a lot of parents listening and watching in right now. From a parent's point of view and from a child's point of view, what is that most crucial age where you've recognized that values start to form or paradigms start to be formulated?
Well, I've been blessed to see, I had a 6-year-old girl attend my program, my signature program, The Breakthrough Experience in Melbourne, Australia. I was teaching about 275 people the program. And the father brought his 6-year-old daughter there. And the 6-year-old daughter was pretty adept. I was pretty inspired. She listened carefully and attentively to the things I said. Surprisingly, she understood more than most people thought she would. And she worked on those principles for that year. The following year, her father brought her back to the program again in Melbourne. There's a video online of me interviewing her when she was 7. Between 6 and 7, she got clear about what her values were. She got clear about what her priorities were. She figured out how to delegate things. She worked, she knew she couldn't get something for nothing, so she figured out a way of earning money to delegate at a young age with her parents and locally. Start engaging people in the area, in the region where she lived. By the time she was 7, she published her first book. By the time she was 9, she had her second book. By the time she was 12, she had her third book. She was a professional speaker by 12, and she was a deputy mayor of Melbourne, Australia by 12. And she was educating and helping youth in educational systems become engaged in their classes. So normally the executive center in the frontal cortex doesn't come online until our mid-20s. This girl's was up and running in her 7-8-year-old mark, 9-year-old mark. I met another 9-year-old girl that got clearer from listening to audio cassettes and CDs and DVDs that we had put out with her father had bought. And he got clear about what she wanted to do at 9. By the time she was 12, she was choreographing and singing and doing musical videos. By 13, she published her first one. That involved a whole school. By 14, Disney signed a $2.2 million deal with her to do her own show. A year later, she did a $5.5 million deal with Disney. So that's what happens when people get started early. I have another girl that was 9 also that ended up being a supermodel, having her own fashion line at 15, was net worth $15 million at 15. Her executive center was already active by age 8, 9, because she got clear about what she wanted to do. And normally the myelinization of that part of the brain doesn't occur until 20s. So it doesn't matter what age, it doesn't matter what you've been through, it doesn't matter what you're going through. What matters is what are you doing today? And if you start wisely prioritizing your day and going after what is truly deeply meaningful to you by finding out what's really important to you, you can turn your life around. Many times we subordinate to the labels that people who have different sets of values impose on us, buy into those labels and assume what they're saying is true, and then suppress ourselves and not honor ourselves with the magnificence that we hold and don't give ourselves permission to shine. So I'm a firm believer that no matter what you've been through, you have the capacity to do something extraordinary. I've yet to see somebody that can't turn things into opportunities. So yeah, the age, I mean, it doesn't really matter. I met a 13-year-old boy in a young adults inspired destiny program in South Africa, in Johannesburg. And he had already read every book on brain surgery that South Africa offered. He'd already been and watched brain surgery in the studios and in the things, and already been doing it and knew more about brain than anybody that you could imagine. And this kid started at age 6. He knew what he wanted to do, and he started devouring it. He started reading it. He got the vocabulary together, and he knew what he was doing. So by the time he was 13, he was a real master of brain surgery, waiting to get his degree and waiting to finish this thing up so he could do brain surgery. He wanted to be the greatest brain surgeon. So if you start early about what you want to do and build momentum, you can go amazing places. But what happens is people start to arise, young kids start to arise. Their parents say, no, you can't do that and everything else. They start believing in outside authorities. They subordinate to they suppress their own natural yearning to express their highest values. They start to doubt their confidence in themselves. They fit in and they conform. Envy is ignorance, imitation is suicide, as Emerson says. And they lose that intrinsic drive, and then they depend on extrinsic drive, and then they wonder why their brain's not developing, and their amygdala is dominating, and their executive center starts to demyelinate and not function. And the truth is they can turn that around. The brain is neuroplastic, and it can be turned around at a very young age and can be turned into something extraordinary. And you got to give people permission to go and be their most authentic self, because that's where they're going to excel. That's where they're going to build momentum and not be stoppable.
So you're never too young, you're never too old. If you can entertain obstacles, you too can entertain opportunities. Why is it so important to work out the highest and truest values in our life first, and then use them to structure our life?
Because the highest value is the most intrinsic value, which means we are spontaneously inspired from within to do. Everybody has something they're spontaneously inspired to do that they don't need to be reminded to do. A young boy who loves video games doesn't have to be motivated to do the video games. He's spontaneously inspired to do the video games. And finding out what that is, and then building around that. You know, mine's teaching, but each individual has something unique that they love doing. And finding out what that is, and then linking everything else that is wise to know and to learn around that, amazing things start to happen. I had a young boy who's also at St. Stithians in Johannesburg. It's a boys' Christian school there. And the headmaster said, John, you need to talk to this boy. He's thinking about dropping out of school. And he wants to go climb Mount Everest. And he's 16 years old. We don't want him to drop out of school. Can you talk to him? So I asked him, I said, I hear you're getting ready to go and climb Mount Everest. He said, yeah, I'm going to climb Mount Everest. I said, what is your CO2 capacity and your oxygen capacity at that altitude? And he goes, I have no idea. I said, you're going to go up to Mount Everest. You're going to go to 26,000 feet almost, and you're not going to know what your capacity is to handle oxygen and what's going to happen at the altitude and how fast to rise up to the altitude. He goes, no. I said, well, you need to know that, because if you're not acclimatized and you're not prepared, your lungs, you're not going to make it. You need to know your stuff here. And I started asking, I said, well, do you have a class in your school that's on chemistry, anything like that? He said, yeah. He says, well, why don't you get your chemistry teacher to work with you and help you prepare for Mount Everest and study those partial, degrees of oxygen and CO2 in your mind. Make sure you know that, know what it'd take and how fast you can climatize, how many days you need to be there in advance. And do you know the language of the Sherpas? He goes, no. I said, well, you're going to go without a team? You got to have the Sherpas there with you. You can't just go up there by yourself. You can't even carry half the stuff up there. You need to have your goods with you. And I just started linking classes that he was taking that I had given by the headmaster to why he would want those classes to prepare for it. And in an hour of talking to him, he decided he was going to go and engage himself in the classes, get all the teachers to assist him, make it something that the whole school would be involved in, wait for graduation, and then have the school rally behind him and invest in his return to go there and climb Mount Everest. And he did. He got inspired by it, but he was going to go prematurely like that. And all I did is I linked the classes to what he wanted most, was to climb Mount Everest. And he wasn't prepared, but he had a kind of a fantasy. But what I did is I linked all the classes that was in his classes to that objective. And now he was seeing them on the way, not in the way. If you can see and ask the question, how is whatever is happening to me today helping me fulfill what's most meaningful to me? You will not be resistant, you'll be assistant, and whatever happens will be on the way. And then you realize that there's nothing has to block me because it's my perception. We have control of our perceptions, decisions, and actions in life. And if we take whatever perceptions we have and ask, how is whatever is happening at this moment helping us get what we want? And then make a decision to be appreciative of that and take actions towards what it is every day and priority towards that objective, nothing stops us. We build momentum, our confidence goes up, our self-worth goes up, we expand our space and time horizons, we give ourselves permission to shine, and we end up waking up our natural leader with confidence. And so that's why the highest value is crucial. If you want to really excel, you want to find out what's really most important and stick to it and prioritize it and find a way of linking everything to it. So no matter what happens, it's on the way.
So for those who are actually in charge, meaning leadership levels, parents, anyone that's in charge of a kid, anyone that's in charge of someone who's working under their umbrella, how important is it to understand their value as opposed to pushing them into a direction where they don't want to go to?
Well, if a parent is autocratic and pushing a child into something they won't want to go, they're going to want to escape in their dopamine fixations. They're going to want to go and get immediate gratification with sugar. They're going to want to escape. They're going to want to play. They're going to want to watch TV to distract. They're not going to be inspired. A wise teacher is not an autocrat. A wise teacher is somebody who cares enough about their child to find out what the values of the child are as they're evolving, and they'll change, and keep current with those values and articulate what they feel will be helpful to the child in terms of those values, because your children are customers. And you don't ever go and sell something assuming you know what they need. You have to find out what they're looking for. And then you have to communicate it in a way where it matches their need. Your children, and just like in school, children are students, and they're also customers. And if you're going to sell them ideas and you're going to help them want to learn, you got to sell it in their ideas and their values and what's important to them. I had 128 students start with me at 8 o'clock in the morning and go right through to 7 o'clock at night with only 3 breaks. And I kept them engaged the entire day because I found out what their values were right in the beginning. And we engaged them and helped them get their values throughout the day. They were inspired. They didn't want to leave the classes. And these were the misfits, supposedly, that these people brought to this class. And they were engaged. And their parents came back to pick them up at 6, and they didn't want to leave. They were still there until 7. Nobody wanted to leave. And their kids, their parents were saying, "Are these my kids? I can't believe it. They're engaged. They're asking questions. They're participating. They're wanting to learn." I said, every human being wants to learn. They just want to learn what's meaningful to them. And if you devalue that and dishonor that and don't appreciate that and impose something on them as an autocrat, you're going to build sheep, not shepherds. You're going to build people that subordinate and conform and don't create and not make a difference. If you want leaders, you got to help them lead and honor their leadership capacities and pathways. So find out what they value, articulate what you want for them in terms of those values respectfully, see them as a customer, communicate in their needs and values and their dominant buying motive of information, and watch what happens. Those kids will excel if you do that.
So you created and trademarked a methodology in human development, which is called the Demartini Method, for the past 47 years of cross-disciplinary research. What led you to develop it, and what is the Demartini Method?
Well, the original thing came from a study from a German philosopher, Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz. And he had a Discourse on Metaphysics book that I read back then. And he basically said that there was a higher order in nature that few people ever get to see, but those that do, their lives change, trajectory changes. Then I read Paul Dirac's book, a Nobel Prize winner, on particle physics, and I saw that the particles and antiparticles that he talked about, when joined together, make light. And I thought, wonder what happened if we took positive and negative emotions and joined them together and made enlightenment, just as a metaphor. And could that be a way of seeing the hidden order in life? And so I started working in psychology, brain research, and physics, and different fields, and compiled a series of questions that made people conscious of things they're normally unconscious of, to make them fully conscious and discover the hidden order in their apparent chaos that they perceive in their daily life. When things are happening and we see them in the way, we perceive it as chaotic. But when we actually ask the right questions and become conscious of the opportunities that it's providing within the crisis, we see there's a hidden order in it, and then we're grateful, and then we're fueled instead of friction. And so the Demartini Method is a series of very precise questions to make us aware of how whatever's happening in our life is on the way and helping us get what we want, and is actually helping us center ourselves into authenticity and to help us become the most profound individual we can be. So that way, when you see through this value system and this method, no matter what happens in your life, you can ask certain questions that it reveals to you the information. So instead of being distressed by it and burdened by it and run it and store it in our subconscious mind and keeping us in baggage and bondage, it frees us and liberates us to have tremendous energy to go after what we want. So it's a very powerful tool. I've been teaching it around the world for many, many years now. And it's evolving, and I've trained thousands and thousands of other specialists in use of it. It's been used by religious people, it's been used by governments, it's used by corporates, it's used by celebrities, sports figures, financial experts. It's got a wide application, but it basically allows, no matter what happens in your life, to be used in the most inspired way.
Hey, I want you to take a quick split second of your time. All I want you to do is hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications. I want to update you when I have a next iconic guest on my show. Stay in student mode. So we all have that one person, and it could be a parent, sibling, significant other, business partner, or even a moment in our life that's holding us back. And we're definitely going to have more of that moments occur in our life in the future. But before we even talk about the person and moment, how do we give ourselves the permission to move forward?
Well, if we need to ask permission, we're subordinating to somebody on the outside. We're not here to compare ourselves to others and subordinate. We're here to compare our daily actions to our own dreams, our own highest priorities. We may be criticized, we may be ridiculed, we may be violently opposed along the journey, but if we stay with it and stick to what we know is true for us, eventually the people that ridicule us eventually honor us. So we're not here to get permission from somebody else. You want to give yourself permission from within to go after what you want and not necessarily relate to somebody else. Because if our whole life is about subordinating to some superego injunction from some outside authority all our life, we're always going to be a follower. So I'm not here to get permission from anybody else. I'm here to give permission from myself to go after what I really want. And fill your day. If you fill your day with high priority actions every day, you won't be just distracted. And there's nothing out there. There's no obstacle out there, and there's no individual ever stopping you, except what you choose to perceive as an obstacle. I've had people say, well, I can't do it because my kids are this, or that. You ask the question, how specifically is doing what I'm loving helping my kids? And how is spending time with my kids helping me do what I love? And you ask a new set of questions. Most people ask themselves, how can I afford to go on vacation? I never ask that question. That's a debt thinking. I always ask, how specifically can I get paid millions to go on vacation? And I ask a new set of questions. My mind opens up to new possibilities. So it's the quality of the questions we ask. The Demartini Method is a series of very powerful quality questions that allow you to see things you never saw before and allow you to take things you thought were obstacles and see that they're not and see them as opportunities.
John, you featured on The Secret in 2006, and I was 12 years old when I first watched the movie. And, from that year onwards, I made it a yearly ritual. In fact, I just watched it last weekend again. And, from that year on, I actually understood self-development. I understood visualization, affirmation, mentorship, etc. How did you featuring on The Secret occur? Was that a moment of fate, or did you personally know Rhonda?
Well, I was called. I was a member of the Transformational Leadership Council with Jack Canfield, and we helped found it, in fact. And he gathered a group at his place there in Santa Barbara, California, a group of leaders in the field of transformation, human behavior. I was there. Rhonda then was going to create a movie, The Secret, she called it, and she made a list of all the people around the world that she's heard of that's involved in that field. And I was on that list. And so she contacted me and asked if I would be in the movie, and it sounded very inspiring. And so I said, absolutely. Well, it happened to be that we were having a transformational leadership council where a whole lot of people, 33 of them, were gathered in one place in Colorado, Aspen, Colorado at the time. So she figured I can get two birds in one stone. I can come to Aspen, I can film everybody all at once and save some time and money. So we organized it. So we filmed, literally every so often another person would go downstairs in this filming area and we would film. Then I got an opportunity to film also in Melbourne when I was in Melbourne next. So we all filmed. And then, of course, they had a snag when they were launching the movie. Originally, it was going to start on Channel 9 in Melbourne, Australia, and it's going to be a 2-hour special. And then it was going to go and be two more hour specials. And there were only going to be 6 people in the original one. Well, then what happened is the Commonwealth Games bought out that time and they had to change that. And so she merged all the content together and reformulated the movie and diluted it down a bit, where it's a little easier for the masses, and put it out on DVD and went out worldwide. And that was actually a gift because it reached more people than it would have ever done on the TV show. And as a result of it, millions of people got impacted by The Secret around the world. And now, the How Thoughts Become Things, its sequel is out. Doug Vermeeren has put another one out that's a sequel to it. It's the next step. Just came out just a few months ago. And that's going gangbusters. So yeah, I'm grateful for that opportunity. She asked if I could be in it. I was blessed by having the opportunity to do it. Now, everybody had a different idea what that movie would be about, and everybody had different input. And that movie is her creation, not everybody who's in it, because we all had different things to say. And so we went around after that movie came out, clarifying things that we would refine compared to what the movie was saying. But the movie obviously touched a lot of people's lives, millions of people's lives.
I actually had Jack Canfield on the show last week, and I've got Bob Proctor next week, Monday. So very exciting times, bringing in people, the traditional self-development guys, not the new school internet marketers. And, John, what was your first introduction to the universal law as well as the law of attraction? And how has your relationship with the higher powers put you in a state of being in control, at peace, as well as attracting anything you desire from mentally to physically in your life?
Well, I first got introduced to what was called universal laws with Paul Bragg when I was 17, about a week before my 18th birthday. And I was inspired by it. You could not be inspired by what he was saying. And that's when I first started to do it. Then I started noticing as I started applying the principles the man introduced, because he said that you want to set goals for yourself, your family, your community, your city, your state, your nation, your world, and beyond for 100 to 120 years. And then what you think about, what you visualize, what you internally dialogue about, how you feel, and what you act upon becomes reality. And nobody really talked to me like that until him. And then I thought, well, this makes so much sense. So I started to take command of what I thought about and start filling my day with the things that I wanted to think about and visualize. I started cutting pictures out. I started doing what he said. And I noticed the synchronicity started increasing. The opportunities started increasing. I started building momentum. I started getting to do things. That's what led me to go back into school and led me back into reading. And so, yeah, I think that it's self-evident as you go onto it. I don't know if it's so much a mystical thing. I don't think that's really mystical. I think it's a practical, the way the brain works. When you're living by congruently with what you really value, your pulvinar nuclei filters out the other stuff and allows you to see the synchronicities and opportunities that align with what you value most. That's the way the brain works. So we're using the brain and neuroplasticity in the brain and the neuroscience to the maximum when we concentrate on how we want our life to be. And it's not so much a positive thinking, because I think in more of a balanced thinking, but it's the idea of basically concentrating on how you would love your life, and solution-oriented, not problem-oriented, and inspiration, not desperation. And I know it works. I've been doing it for 47 years.
Yeah, so bringing the future into the present.
Actually dissolving the illusion of time and becoming present
in
the image as you would love it to be is amazing. The masters of all sports have known to do that. I've worked with golfers, I've worked with swimmers, I've worked with all kind of pole vaulters, you name it, Olympic medalists. The ones who know how to be present in the outcome get the outcome.
You say motivation doesn't work. Why is that?
Well, I'm not a motivator. I help people. I find out what's intrinsically inspiring from within, so they don't need motivation without. I always say motivation is a symptom, never a solution. unless you want to call inspiration an intrinsic motivation, then I'm okay with the term. But I like to distinguish that, because a true inspiration, you don't need to be motivated to do. I haven't needed motivation for 47 years to get up and research and teach. If you can find anybody on the planet that's ever seen me need motivation to go research and teach, you got a free seminar, because you won't find it. My daughters have never seen. I asked them the other day, she's 35. She said, I've never seen you need that. I don't need motivation. I would need motivation to cook. I would need a motivation to do things that are low in my values, but not the things that I love most. And I don't do anything else. I've delegated everything else. I learned a long time ago that to surround yourself with people who would love to do the things you want to delegate, free yourself up, give them the opportunity to do what they love, give yourself opportunity to do what you love, and prioritize your life, and don't do anything desperate. Do something inspiring to you, and then do it in a way that it serves people, so you're getting paid to do it, to pay for the delegations. And your life is liberated by that. And so I'm blessed. I've just learned that tool. It works. I've shown millions of people that process. The ones that do it, they get a result. It shows the same result. It's not magic. It's just simply common sense. But most people want to blame things on the outside and want to become victims of their history instead of masters of destiny.
So you talk about delegation, and I want to, instead of focusing on delegating things to other people, how do you delegate your energy from writing to researching and then studying, as well as teaching and speaking alongside that? How do you have a formula, or what formula do you have or created which you break your day down to get the maximum amount from yourself and from your day?
Well, it's very simple. I have a list of priorities of all the speaking possibilities that I could do, from keynote speeches down to workshops to webinars to podcasts, etc. And they're all prioritized. And then I have all the different types of interviews that I could be doing, all prioritized. And I have publicists and administrators and people all over the world that are bringing that to me and scheduling that. And I'm getting a schedule throughout the day. And it comes in every day, sometimes multiple times a day, updating as new information is coming in. And then I go from that perspective right there. I schedule a certain amount of hours for study. And then the rest of the day is dedicated to that. And I'm doing programs throughout the day. And they know my priorities, and they fill it up with priorities. And if I have any opening, I go into research. If I'm not opening, I go into doing exactly what they have on the schedule. And they know my priorities, and so I have them accountable to structure those things throughout the day. I don't have to do administrative work. They're doing it. They'll give me a thing that says, here's your Zoom contact. You're now podcast doing this. Here's your next one. You have a 30-minute break. And I have my research all organized, so I know what I'm going to research in those 30 minutes. And I get back to the podcast. I have a very efficient day. And I don't, if I have other things that distract me, I just say no. I don't have, other people are opportunists. If I have a standard response to them, it goes to a gatekeeper. The gatekeeper then schedules it. They have to put a brief together. The brief has to match what I'm up to, has to match our brand. If it matches the brand, it'll get through. It'll have a meeting. They'll schedule a meeting through a preliminary person. It'll get to me if it requires my assistance. If not, they'll schedule it, put it on my system.
That's so key, John, because a lot of people want to be a jack of all trades, where they just want to tick every single box, yet they master absolutely none. Focus on what you're good at. Pay other people who are good at that to master it, so you can literally spend more time.
I want to research, write, travel, teach. That's it. And now I'm traveling on Zoom. We're reaching every country around the world on Zoom. Fantastic. When the corona passes, I'll be back on my ship. My ship travels all over the world. That's where I live, and I normally live anyway. And then I'll be traveling that way, or I'm on flights. So if I get to do a live presentation, that's one of the things I love doing most. But otherwise, Zoom is fantastic. I've been blessed by Zoom, and we've reached millions of people by Zoom.
So walk me through your morning rituals. I know you in the divine practices of meditation, visualization, affirmations. What methodologies and techniques do you use for meditation? How long do you spend? What state do you get yourself into, as well as what flows through you?
I started meditation at age 17 when I met Paul Bragg. I then studied meditation by an Indian guru, and then another woman Indian guru, and then another mystic, and then a guy that had 6 PhDs who was an Indian man. I studied transcendental meditation, Maharishi. I studied a lot of different meditations. I studied physiology, brain research, breathing mechanisms, respiratory insights. I don't follow any of them. I incorporate all of them. I've integrated and know what each one plays. I know that playing with different breathing does certain things to physiology. I know that concentrating does certain things. I pretty well know what they do, and I use them as needed in different settings. So if I know that I'm flying and I'm finishing up a program at 10 o'clock and I'm flying all night for 6 hours and I'm going to land and I'm speaking when I land, and I know that I'm going to have only about 3 hours of real decent rest, I'm going to go into a deep meditation and go into transcendental state, make sure my physiology is neutral. And I may do external long-term exhalations to lower the energies and make sure I really go into a deep sleep. And then when I land, I may put in a higher inspiration and inhalation to get my sympathetic back up and then have the adrenaline. So I know how to use my physiology and change neurochemistry with breathing mechanisms and meditational concentrations and ratios of perceptions to change hormones. So I use the meditation as a tool to accomplish what I'm doing with the time frames that I'm in. But I don't have any set thing, because I think that's the kindergarten cookbook approach. I basically look and I study the physiology, study the brain, study the hormones, study how it works, and use how the brain and body works to maximize performance to get the job done that I want to do at that time based on the situation that I'm in.
I've heard you say when you can see the genius, you have the power to awaken it. How do you awaken the genius that you personally see?
Genius is automatically, spontaneously emerging in anybody who's pursuing challenges that inspire them, that serve others. Anytime you go out and ask yourself, what is the greatest challenge in the world that I could face right now that would inspire me to solve it, and go and solve it, you'll wake up genius, innovation, creativity. When you're supported and things are easy, you don't innovate. It's when you're challenged, and you're challenged by things that you're inspired to conquer and solve. There's where good genius and innovation. So a young boy who loves his video games, he loves when he conquers a video game, he wants to go on to a more advanced game. So he's going for that. When he does, he solves it. He gets creative. He comes up with solutions to it. Finding things that inspire you that you want to solve, and challenges that you want to solve that inspire you, is the way to wake up genius. And everybody has the capacity to wake up their genius. It's just they don't, because they're subordinating. And whenever they subordinate and they're not doing something meaningful, they go and wake up the blood glucose and oxygen in their amygdala. And their amygdala is a desire center for immediate gratification. And they compensate that these immediate gratifications and addictive consumptive behaviors are compensation for unfulfilled highest values. So get back to priority, start looking at what you can do to make a difference in the world, go and find solutions more effectively and efficiently than anybody else, and wake up your genius and watch the capacity you have that you didn't even know you had.
We're living in a time right now in the world where there's so much of external noise, distraction, and negativity. Sadly, our environment is affecting people. You made that conscious decision when you were 17 years old through your accident. How do people affect their environment rather than allowing the environment to affect them?
Just realizing that you have control of your perceptions. That's what the Demartini Method is for, to take whatever happens in the outside world and ask a new set of questions to turn it into opportunity. There's nothing out there that stops people. It's all myth. This whole thing's a hallucination of your own mind that you're creating. And if you decide to say, well, that's a terrible thing, and get caught in some moral hypocrisy, well, then you've trapped yourself in an illusion. But you got to ask, no matter what's happening, how am I using that to my greatest advantage? How is that an opportunity? How is it giving me a catalyst? What is it awakening me? What is it teaching me? What opportunities? Who am I meeting from that? How does it help me in all areas of my life, help me fulfill what's most meaningful to me? Then it's not an obstacle. I've had people going through beatings and rapes and all kinds of things in their life. None of that is what matters. It's how they perceive, what they decide to do with it, and how they act as a result of it. And they have always command of that. They don't have command of the outer world, but they have command on how they perceive, decide, and act from that world. And that they have command on. So if they want to play victim of history and blame things on the external world, they're never going to empower their life. But if they go in there and realize, okay, that's not what matters, it's now what I do with it. Because I've had all kinds of things. I was told I would never read. I turned out to be a scholar. I've never been able to write. I've written 300 friggin' books. They told me I would never travel or go very far in life. I've had 20 million miles in travel. Everything that they said I wouldn't be able to do, I've done and excelled at. It had nothing to do with the world on the outside and people's opinions. People's opinions are the cheapest commodities on earth, and the ones that circulate the most have the least value. You want to give yourself permission to let your own opinion be more powerful I'd rather have the whole world against me than my own soul, is the old proverb. If we go in there and let our own dreams be our focus and make sure those dreams be of service, the doors of opportunity will keep emerging. And there's nothing out there stopping us. I have people come in, they come every weekend to the breakthrough experience. And they say, well, my mother did this, my father did this. My mother wasn't there for me. Good. Who became a new mother? Well, I don't know. Well, who became a new mother? Nothing's ever missing. It's a conservation. What happened to it? Who showed up as your new mother? Oh, this and this and this. Great. What was the benefit of them? And what would have been the drawback if your mother had been there? Oh, I never thought about that. And then they turn it into an opportunity. Otherwise, they could sit there and run a story and play victim, going to the little therapist. It shrinks them further. No, you want to give yourself permission to shine and see how whatever's happening is on the way. And when you do, I assure you, it's on the way. It's just a perception. We've all had situations we thought were terrible, and then a day, a week, a month, a year, or 5 years later, we look back and go, thank God that occurred. And we didn't see it then. But why have the wisdom of the ages with the aging process? We can have the wisdom of the ages without it by looking now and finding out how it serves and then getting on with it and using it as fuel.
So we as humans are so ready to ask as well as forget to practice gratitude for the little bit that we actually have in life. Because if we aren't grateful for what we currently have, we'll never receive what we truly want. Why is an attitude of gratitude so important? As well as what are some methods that you utilize and practices that you implement in your life for gratitude?
Well, I was born on Thanksgiving Day, so I think it was part of my nature. My mom told me when she was putting me to bed when I was 4, she says, make sure you count your blessings. Those that are grateful for what you have, you'll get more to be grateful for. That is just a daily ritual. I have 25 of these volumes of gratitudes, 25 volumes. That's 900 pages. So I do it every single day. You're already on there. This interview is already on there as of this morning. Have the opportunity to have an interview by yourself and et cetera with the Millionaire students. And so I basically write down everything I get to do on a daily basis, keep record of it, what I'm grateful for. And I don't go to bed at night without that. And I do it throughout the day and night. And that's the last thing I do to make sure I go to bed with a gratitude attitude. I get up in the morning and that's in my mind. And I think about what I'm grateful for in the morning. And I ask, what is the highest priority? My highest priority, as it shows on here, has already been defined. It's research, write, travel, teach. I already know what it is. I've been doing it so long. I know I don't waste my time on anything else. Those are the things that I do. It's my core competence. And I stick to what I do. And I build momentum around it. And therefore, you have more opportunities and there's more to be grateful for, and it compounds. Gratitude is the key that opens up the gateway of the heart. Inside the heart is love. Love radiates out. Window washes the mind, brings inspiration and enthusiasm in the body, makes you more certain and more present in your actions, and increases the synchronicity of people, places, things, ideas, and events into creation into your life to give you what you want in life, which then compounds more gratitude and starts the cycle further. And you build momentum. And the momentum is available to any human being that stops and sees things on the way, not in the way.
I've heard you speak about the general wealth mistakes that people make. Can you elaborate on some of these mistakes that doesn't allow them to achieve their desired success?
Well, financial, there's many forms of wealth. Having beautiful children is a form of wealth. Having knowledge of spiritual awareness, having social friends, there's all kinds of wealth. But financial wealth, automatically money circulates through the economy from those who value it least to those who value it most. To those that have the least certainty about it, to those that have the most certainty about it. The ones that have the least order around it, to those that have the most order around it. If you don't have a value on wealth building, and you have a value on spending money on consumables that depreciate in value, the moment you make money, you go and spend it on something that is somebody else's brand that you live vicariously through, that is actually overpriced and depreciates in value, and you go backwards. If you don't have a value on buying assets that accumulate, that work for you, you're not going to get financially free. And people say, I want to be financially independent. No, they don't. They say they do, but their life doesn't demonstrate it. They want to live the lifestyles of the rich and famous, live beyond their means, keep in debt. They buy a house. A quarter of it goes into a garage filled with clutter, with a car that you pay money for that depreciates, on a credit card that depreciates, and it's fractional reserve banking. So you automatically are putting yourself in debt, because most people don't think about what they spend their money on and don't really focus on buying assets. But my life changed at age 27. I realized the difference between a real asset and a liability, and I started buying assets. I just kept buying assets, and now my assets are creating assets. And now I don't have to work. That's long gone. I was financially independent 9 years after I started. I've been financially independent for 30 years now. In the process of doing that, I can do what I love. But what the key about financial independence is doing what you love, not because you have to, but because you love to. And that's the key. You want financial independence, not because of the fancy lifestyle and debauchery. You want financial independence because you can do something philanthropic, and you can do something that's meaningful, that inspires you, and exemplify that in the world, and catalyze a chain reaction in other people to do the same. And that's very rewarding and meaningful.
So there's a lot of different types of leaders who I've received messages from, who listen in on this show, from government leaders to leaders of sporting teams, as well as organizations and companies. What is the most effective way, and what traits should one develop to own the leadership space?
Well, leadership is congruency. It's integrity with what you value most. You know, if I was to go in, my highest value is teaching and learning. So if I was to go away from that, try to do something other than that, I would be out of integrity. I won't excel. I'm not inspired. So anytime you're trying to be somebody you're not, you've walked away from your leader. And anytime you're being authentic to what is truly meaningful to you, that you can't wait to get up in the morning and do, that you're inspired by, that's where you're going to excel. Epistemologically, you learn most in your highest value. Your identity revolves around your highest value. That's your purpose, is the direction of your highest value. So if you live congruently and purposefully and inspired, and you live there, that's where you're going to excel. And so a leader who lives there is able to be more objective and handle pairs of opposites and handle reactions, and is inspired. And they're not doing it for success. I don't care about success. I'm interested in my mission, to fulfill my mission. And the second you start to think you've arrived and think I'm special or whatever, you're on your way down, because you've got into a false ego. It's basically the mission of making a difference and doing what you're here to do on the planet. When you do that, you get rewarded. It's not narcissistic, it's not altruistic, it's a perfect blend of equanimity. And I'm for doing that. And any leader who's found out what that is, that they're inspired by it, it's not their passion. Many people think it's passion. It's their mission. Passion, by definition, if you look at its root, comes from pati and passio, which means to suffer. Compassion means to suffer with somebody. A mission, inspired mission, is a calling, a métier, something that's feeling deeply inspiring and purposeful for their life. I'm a man on a mission. I'm not a passion. A passion is an ungoverned, uncontrolled behavior that's an animal. The mission is an inspired behavior of the human and the angel within. And the angel within is the messenger that has a mission, that has something that's a vision to bring to the world. And everybody has that inside them if they live congruently.
John, you're an avid reader. You've studied more than 3,000 books and personally written 40 plus yourself. What is your writing method? Where and how do you begin writing?
It's changed over the years as I've gone. I used to sit down and write, just with a pen and pencil and write. And then we used a typewriter, and then we used finally a dot matrix printer in 1982. And then we started using, word processing, and it slowly evolved. Now, most of the time I'm just researching and taking in information and organizing information. And then I do presentations, and then I transcribe those presentations. And then we come back and I get editors to help me edit that and clean it up. And sometimes they edit it where people can understand it, even though I will see it differently than they'll do it, but they help it go out where it's understood by everybody. And I delegate most of it now. All I do is research and write, and then I go out and I teach, and then I transcribe and I put that into a book. It's easier now. Some books I do that's actual writing, but most of it is done that way now.
So for anyone who's been inspired by your story, as well as intrigued by your studying your methodologies, which one of your books would you recommend they begin with, and why?
Well, I think the Breakthrough Experience will always be a classic. That's been out for a while. But the newest book that still I think everybody can benefit is The Values Factor. It's about how impactful living congruently with your highest values is, and how to empower all 7 areas of your life with it. How to wake up your genius, how to build momentum in business, how to manage people, how to build wealth, how to have a communication in relationships, how to lead, how to have physiology that's working on your behalf, how to be inspired. It's a whole book on how to self-actualize and fulfill your life by living aligned with your values, your true highest values, and how to determine those. On my website, drdemartini.com, there's a value determination process. It's complimentary, it's private, it's free. Anybody can go on it. Millions of people have gone on it. If you go on there, It'll help you actually define what that is. I'd recommend you do it a week later and a month later and a quarter later and keep doing it, because sometimes you want to lie and you're going to want to write answers to the questions it's asking based on what your fantasies are instead of what your life demonstrates. And learning how to be objective about how your life really works is a first step in authenticity and basically leadership.
John, in closing up, very last question. What does self-talk and your internal dialogue with yourself sound like?
Well, when you're pursuing something that's deeply meaningful, truly inspiring, something you feel is your purpose in life, something you can't wait to get up in the morning and do, your internal self-talk is thank you, because you get to do it. But the second you subordinate to people on the outside and minimize yourself in comparison, as Einstein said, if you're a cat expecting to swim like a fish, you'll beat yourself up and you'll have internal dialogue that's self-defeating. The moment you subordinate to the world on the outside, try to be somebody you're not, try to be second instead of first in who you are. You're designed to have negative self-talk, to let you know you're off track from who your authenticity is. So negative self-talk is not a bad thing. It's a feedback to let you know that you're pursuing fantasies, not true objectives. And so what you do, the moment you're clear on what your highest priority is and what a true objective is, your primary objective, your self-talk cleans up and gets inspiring and gets focused. But if not, you're going to have self-depreciating self-talk because you're not being yourself. You're pursuing fantasies, one-sided outcomes, things that aren't really strategized, things that aren't really yours. And when you do, you automatically have the self-depreciating self-talk to let you know you are off track, you're not on track with who you are. The moment you're back on track, that self-talk dissolves. And now you're affirmative. And an affirmation means firmness in one's mind. It's not a positive statement. It means a condition of firmness in one's mind. And you're unwavering when you're congruent and you're clear on your mission. I've been clear on my mission since 1718. Ever since that, my mom told me, we're going to love you no matter what. There was no turning back. I've been clear on the mission. Finding what that mission is and getting clear about that mission and sticking to it, prioritizing it, is enormously powerful to create a trajectory that is building momentum that's unstoppable.
Is there one question that you would have wanted me to ask you that you could ask yourself?
Well, I think the one question is a question that is similar to what Bill Gates asks himself every day. What is the highest priority action I can do today to fulfill the greatest possible service to the greatest number of people in the most effective and efficient manner with the resources I have available to me today? That's a powerful question. How can I do the greatest service for the greatest number of people with the resource I have today in the area that inspires me most? So I can't wait to get up and do it.
John Demartini, thank you so much for being on the Millionaire Student Show. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for your wisdom, your knowledge, and your methodologies, and just being a service. Out there, there's not many people who actually want to put other people first and being able to serve. So I truly appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for the opportunity to be on your show, and thank you for the interview.